So I still believe that Batman Arkham Asylum is still just absolutely timeless. This 2009 superhero game really set the standard of what we should want and honestly expect from our superhero video games. And even now, the influence of Batman Arkham can be found in many different games, and all of that started with Arkham Asylum. Is it flawless? Of course it's not. In fact, in many ways, its age does reflect in this game. There are a few things that are a little dated and some design choices that in retrospect are not exactly the best, but we're not going to do that. We are not going to compare Batman Arkham Asylum constantly to the other games. We are going to look at Arkham Asylum on its own merits, what it achieved all the way back in 2009 and the legacy it left behind now. And looking at just what Arkham Asylum achieved on its own from a studio that at the time only really put out one game and was completely unfamiliar and unsure how Batman Arkham Asylum was even going to exist. It is truly something that is respectable. From its admittedly slightly dated but still fun and addictive combat, a simple yet engaging story with absolutely stellar voice work, and series best tone and atmosphere. That is something that even the later games have failed to replicate. It all works together to create this undeniable and frankly unforgettable experience that can range from epic and badass to 1 second, and then dark, brooding, and at times even scary, which for me is what I think of when I think of Batman. Now, I'm not saying that Arkham Asylum is the best game in this series. That's just not true. But what I am saying is that even after all this time, the legacy that Arkham Asylum left behind is one that still manages to earn its place among the greats. Now, before we get any further, obviously, as you know with the making of this video, it's worth noting I love Batman. He is easily my favorite superhero from TV shows, movies, heck, he's even one of the only superheroes whose comics I've actively read and enjoyed. He's the type of hero that represents everything that I like in my superheroes. The odd man out, the man who isn't the strongest, fastest, no powers, but through sheer willpower and peak human badassery or luck, if you just want to call it that, manages to pull off nigh impossible feats, including contending with quite possibly the single greatest rogue gallery in comic book history. And yet, with all that said, in my personal opinion, I believe that the best feeling Batmans are the ones that are on the smaller scale, very ground level, focused on taking down baddies that are more down to earth. And me personally, I think that's what makes Asylum feel so special. It's that mix of scale and tone that gives it the vibe that just hasn't been seen again. Dark, brooding, gothic. I like small scale gothic Batman, and that is Asylum completely at work. And I think the opening of this game is a testament to that. The opening of this game is iconic for a reason. The Batmobile speeding through the streets of Gotham, the Joker's insane rambling, the typical engaging back and forth banter between him and the Dark Knight, I'll get to that a little later, the slow introduction of the asylum and its inhabitants, and how it does a wonderful job of unknowingly preparing you for the dark adventure ahead. It's pretty intense as you make your way further into the madhouse, just waiting and anticipating the point for everything to just go completely wrong. That vibe alone is exactly what I mean when I keep discussing that dark gothic atmosphere, almost like, dare I say, a horror movie. This game really gives off the impression of a gothic horror movie. Now, let me be very clear. I'm not saying that this is a horror game, but just look at the way it's shot, the visuals, the color, the loud, brooding music from its fantastic soundtrack. That almost foreboding main theme really setting the stage of what's to come in Arkham Asylum. All of that comes together to inhibit a feeling of isolation. A single man against an army of psychopathic nutcases. And the game embraces that feeling like a badge of honor, and it's wonderful. But to be fair, everything I just said, isolation, dark tone, atmosphere, is all helped by many factors in this game. And one of those many factors is the music and the art. The art design and direction of Arkham Asylum is still amazing. Now, admittedly, I'm playing on the remastered, and I'm not gonna lie, if there's one issue I can directly point to at the remaster, the original game had a really interesting visual palette, almost kind of washed out and gray, and it really did help to give it a look that was kind of all of its own, but when you go to the remaster, it kind of loses that identity just a little bit. But at the end of the day, it still looks incredible, and helps to set the tone throughout the entire game. I think the best example of that art direction and that atmosphere at work is when you are just leaving the first area of Arkham Asylum. You make your way out of the cave, and Batman first lays his eyes upon Arkham East. From the gargoyles on the buildings, to the moonlight peeking through the clouds, to the rain, to the soft lights illuminating the building, it just screams Gothic horror, and it looks amazing. So much so that the asylum herself is packed with so much visual splendor and detail that you almost start to view her as a character in and of herself. And that goes back to just the little details found in the environment. From the dim lighting, the dirty floors, the architecture, hallways littered with tight corridors and disturbing graffiti and suspiciously pointed medical tools. It's something that so many people may be tempted to overlook. But when you take the time to smell the roses, pun not intended, it really is something that just adds on to make Asylum feel alive. The art direction, the little designs, of course, play a huge part in giving Asylum that sense of place, but it's not just the things in the game, it is also the environmental storytelling of this asylum. Arkham Asylum is very much taking inspiration from Metroidvanias, and we'll jump more into that detail later. But what's important for every Metroidvania is one big thing: environmental variety. All the best Metroidvanias have multiple environments that you need to unlock by collecting new items, but no one wants to be in those environments if they feel exactly the same. And for a game like Arkham Asylum, that was honestly a real possibility when you only have a select few buildings on a relatively small island to explore. And that's what makes Arkham Asylum both interesting and really damn impressive. By all accounts, it really shouldn't feel as distinct and different as it does. But Rocksteady took amazing strides to ensure that each area of the island feels almost like a mini dungeon with its own feeling, layout, design, and stories to tell. You'll visit the gardens, which are overrun with floral greens, the Arkham Mansion with its old school Gothic architecture and red carpet, or the intensive treatment units with beds, sharp tools, tight corridors. It could have been very easy for the developers to cheap out in this department, but they managed to keep it fresh, making these locations feel so distinct while never making them feel too isolated. They all still have that Gothic and horror-esque feel. They feel unique, but they all feel part of the asylum. And yet, despite each area having its own identity, what really helps to sell the entire island and this whole feeling is the development of these areas. As you make your way through the asylum, at the very start of the game, just as everything is going to shit, you'll start to see the decay slowly. Graffiti on the walls, Joker teeth peppering the floors, a few dead bodies here and there, but then you step outside and you almost get a safe feeling. You still see the hope and confidence in many of the security guards outside. But as you keep playing, you realize the severity of the situation. Each time you come back to the island itself, you see more guards dead, more inmates running the island, and increase in danger with guns, and eventually even Poison Ivy starts to take control over the island and engulf it in her plant growth that can almost be described as a look that's post-apocalyptic. At the start of the game, you're actually safer outside, but as the island grows worse and worse, you almost yearn for the safety that comes from inside the building. The development of this island, as you slowly see it descend into madness, is really underrated, but so damn incredible. Joker's intercom announcement slowly gets worse and more frequent the further you get into the game.
I want all the doctors rounded up. Search every inch of the medical building. I mean it. Search every room, every office, and every trash can. But now the doctor tries to run and gets out of the building, then you won't. I'll just flood the rooms with happy gas and leave you to die. Hell, I may do that anyway. Sounds fun.
The plants overrun the outside of the asylum, and the mural that is constantly present as you pass by slowly becomes more prevalent and built up the further you get in the game, further showing Joker's ever-growing control. And this right here leads back to the perfect atmosphere of Arkham Asylum. As everything is getting worse, as you make your way through the game and observe the security getting killed off, the inmates running the asylum, and the Joker's control of the warden's cameras and megaphone, which he constantly uses to belittle, tease, and threaten Batman, it gives the feeling that no matter how much you do or how many people you save, Joker is always one step ahead, always in control, and always watching you. And that's what makes the Joker, the Rogues Gallery, even Arkham Asylum so damn intimidating. And it makes the asylum, after all these years, still one of the single best locations ever brought to gaming, and certainly one of the most memorable maps and environments of the entire series. But despite that stellar Gothic atmosphere, art, environments, music, all of that alone does not make Batman. Let's be honest, right? All of that stuff is wonderful, and it helps to make Arkham Asylum the gold standard that it is. But at the end of the day, it goes deeper than that. If you don't nail the characterization of Batman and the Rogues Gallery and the characters as a whole, then let's be real, it doesn't matter how gothic or dark your game looks, it won't feel like Batman. And thankfully, at the time, Rocksteady knew that, accepted the assignment, and did everything in their power to make this story feel almost like the perfect entryway for Batman fans, the perfect gateway for newcomers and diehard fans. And when you look at the voice talent and the writers that they got to work on the story here, it makes sense as to why this story just works so well. In retrospect, it's honestly really impressive, the people they got working on the Arkham series story. I mean, they got the man, the myth, himself, Paul Dini, to write this story. And who is Paul Dini? I'm sure somebody in this video was asking. Well, he's just the writer behind not only the best animated Batman show, but also the man we can partially thank for the creation of one Harley Quinn. Paul Dini is a legend when it comes to Batman. And because of that, the boys over at Rocksteady basically said, if we're gonna tell a Batman story, why not go straight to the source? So they brought in Paul Dini to write the stories for both Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. Because of that, this story feels familiar to other Batman media, while still being the perfect way to introduce the lore, the tone, the characters of Batman. At its core, Asylum plays it relatively safe. It's not packed with many twists, or even real emotional depth, at least not very often. It's a fairly standard Batman versus Joker story. Joker's up to no good, and Batman has got to get to the stopping him. It's the popcorn movie, if you will, where you go for the great time, the character moments, the interactions, the action, but not exactly the deep storytelling. But with all that said, that is not to talk down in the slightest to the story here, because it still manages to be a damn engaging story brought to life by the characters we have all come to love. In fact, the real enjoyment of this story comes from one, Batman being Batman, and two, and this is really important, Batman's relationships. Watching Batman converse and bounce off the inhabitants of the asylum is where the enjoyment of this story is gonna come from. It really also helps that they actually got people from the animated series to reprise their roles in this game. And I honestly don't think there's too much that needs to be said on any of them, but I'm gonna do it anyway because they're fucking legends. The late Kevin Conroy is the Batman. With all these other animated and live action Batmans out there, not a single one has or will ever top the GOAT. But what good is the Batman without his foil? What else can possibly be said? It's fucking Mark Hamill. The man is similar to Kevin Conroy, rest in peace, in that he has become practically the voice of the character. When I think of Joker to this day, I think of Mark Hamill. The perfect balance of being genuinely funny and downright terrifying. That level of uncertainty of whether you're in genuine danger or if it's all part of the joke.
Mean to take my temperature? I'd be happy to drop my pants.
You love Kevin Conroy as Batman. You love Mark Hamill as Joker, but they really shine and have always shined when it's these two together.
Gordon, try and contact the warden. Let him know what's happened. I'll be back.
Don't make promises you can't keep, Bats. I'm in control of the asylum. You're not going anywhere I don't want you to. Understand?
If you think I'll let you run...
Always for the heroes. You looking bored watching you. Why don't you just come find me?
So as you can tell, I'm a big fan of Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. But this is not just a Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill show. Well, that's not entirely true, but I'm just saying that it would be a disservice to the other fine voice work in the game if I didn't acknowledge them. In fact, Mark and Kevin aren't even the only OG actors. They got the original voice actor for Harley Quinn from the animated series. No, not Tara Strong. Before Tara Strong, Arlene Sorkin. And of course, she crushes it. Not to talk shit about Tara Strong. She's practically like the second voice now I think of when I think of Harley Quinn. But man, you can't beat the original. You can't beat the OG. It's not just the voice work. It's the back and forth between those voices that make this oh so entertaining. That back and forth between Batman and his many enemies is truly what justifies experiencing this story at all. And it's not just Batman and Joker, although they are great. It's Batman and Scarecrow, Batman and Poison Ivy, Batman and Bane, Batman and Harley Quinn, slaying that nurse outfit, by the way. I mean, holy. Batman has one of the best rogues gallery in a comic book medium. And this game, with their wonderful dialogue and their incredible designs, really make it clear as to why they are so memorable, especially the death screens in this game. I love the hell out of these. I never know whether to be embarrassed, annoyed, freaked out, or enthralled anytime we see them. My personal favorite ones are Joker and Killer Crocs. Also, I like Poison Ivy because, you know, look at that character design. Ooh, love it.
You're dead and buried, darling.
All of it really helps to make the story of Arkham Asylum not the deepest or the most emotional, but a hell of a lot of fun. It almost feels like something akin to an amusement park, except the rides are the many villains you encounter along the way. However, what is a good Batman game if you can't do what Batman does best? Stealthing around, beating the ever-loving crap out of goons, and doing good old-fashioned detective work. And admittedly, it is in the gameplay where you're not only going to find the most influence, but also where you can start to pick out the most holes in the game. So what if I told you that Arkham Asylum, at the very start of it all, was originally prototyped to be a rhythm game? The free flow combat in Batman Arkham Asylum was originally prototyped with some rhythm aspects, since the team was having trouble bringing the brutal and quick combat that we all know and love today to fruition. That prototype would eventually go on to be scrapped, but the idea that was left behind and used in Arkham Asylum not only explains a lot about its background, but honestly now, I couldn't imagine it any other way. I mean, look at this free flow combat, which, warts and all, above all else, still feels absolutely incredible. The build up as it starts slow with those few heavy haymakers, but once you reach that 3x combo, you begin flying across the screen, kicking, punching, and countering against big groups of thugs. You find yourself in a cathartic flow state, and you just start keeping the beat to the beat down. You start literally counting down the seconds between each hit. Combat starts to feel less like button mashing and more like calculated momentum, like you have a metronome in your head, and every strike, counter, and evade feeds into the precise rhythm that rewards that timing over aggression. And it's when you get to that point, it's when you can really get to experiment. Special takedowns you can unlock with your skill points, or even incorporate the typical Batman gadgets in your combat with a well-timed batarang to leave an enemy dazed, or Batclaw to drag enemies over to you. This all plays a hand in the combat in Batman Arkham Asylum, feeling easy to learn but hard to master. But oh boy, when you master it, it's pretty damn hard to put down. Now, of course, as this is the oldest of the games, the combat is certainly not a flawless experience. One very notable issue is the camera. While the back and forth momentum-based combat feels great, you can kind of feel the camera scrambling to keep the pace with the speed of Batman's combat. You see some weird angle snaps, some awkward zoom-ins, sometimes enemies will slip off screen, to the point that sometimes you do kind of feel like you're fighting the camera during the combat, and yeah, that's never really a great sign. Again, it was never enough to ruin it, but it's noticeable. One other very noticeable issue is a lack of enemy variety. Yeah, barring the rogues gallery, once you're introduced to the enemies in this game, which can be summed up as regular goon, goon with gun or taser, knife goon or lunatic, oh, and poison ivy's little plants, you've essentially seen just about all of the adversaries in the game. And by the end, barring the main villains, you do start to get ever so slightly tired of fighting the same enemy. The lack of variety is even present in the boss fights, despite the fact that the interactions that Batman has with these villains are very cool. The game has a shockingly little amount of bosses, at least memorable ones. The Scarecrow sections are standouts for sure, but those are more platforming sections than boss fights. Exploring Croc's lair is cool, but I'd hardly call it a boss fight. Bane is just a glorified Titan fight. The Titan fights are just glorified Titan fights. The only one that feels like a genuine fight that tries to shake things up a little bit is Poison Ivy, but then it's really nothing to scream about. And then you got the Joker. It's the Joker's fight that's really just the most egregious. You have the Joker, a psychotic manipulator who spends the entire game berating, threatening, outsmarting Batman, and his boss fight is just another Titan fight. When I got to this part on my playthrough for this retrospective, I felt disappointment all over again. I was just sitting there like, really? This is it? This is how we're ending the game? It's just such an out of left field ending to have a game end with a mutated Joker battle atop of the asylum. It just feels tonally off from the rest of the game, and it makes the ending feel rushed and honestly wrapped up way too quickly and way too easy. The ending is one part of the game that is actively not very good. But despite the lack of boss fights and real enemy variety and a few small issues with the camera, the free flow combat of this game is considered standard setting for a reason. It's absolutely a strong foundation and still holds up surprisingly well. But anyone who says Batman is only a hero who uses his fisticuffs clearly hasn't seen a Batman media in their life. Stealth is key to Batman's skill set. He uses the darkness to strike fear into the hearts of the criminals. And just like with the free flow combat, the foundation here is also flawed, but still very strong. This is the first Batman game to truly have stealth that truly nails the feeling of the Batman hunting his prey. From Batman using the gargoyles as his relay recon points, to the added variety to your tool set that you can use, such as your batarangs or explosive gel to set traps, your moves like your glide kick or the now iconic inverted takedown. The stealth in Batman Arkham Asylum does give you a relatively sizable array of options for dispatching a group of thugs, and I'm not gonna lie, it's awesome. It requires you to actually use that strategic planning that Batman is famous for by actually planning 3 steps ahead, and watching a perfectly coordinated plan come together is just as cool as it is incredibly satisfying. If only it wasn't quite so easy. Yeah, that's kind of my biggest issue with stealth. It is the damn detective mode. Don't get me wrong, from a pure gameplay perspective, it makes stealth encounters cleaner and removes a lot of the frustrations that normally come from darker environments. But here's the thing, stealth is usually built around uncertainty. You're supposed to feel nervous, scanning rooms, listening for movement, reacting to what you think is happening. Arkham Asylum kind of tosses that tension aside because with the detective mode on, you see everything. Enemies are glowing through walls, patrol routes are exposed, threats basically impossible to lose track of, and it wouldn't be so bad if the AI of these goons wasn't incredibly easy and simple. And on top of that, when you need to keep the detective mode on for extended periods of time, it makes it so that you're not really even able to appreciate that stellar presentation and art all around you. It's a cool mechanic, I just didn't feel fully balanced yet at the time. Still fun, but too easy, at least for me. Now, the last real significant gameplay aspect of this game is the detective sections, where you solve small puzzles required to progress the story. I put this last because I have the least to say about it. It definitely gives you that fantasy of playing Batman as a master detective, which I greatly appreciate, but it's more presentation than actual puzzle solving. They didn't go as deep into this as they could have. It's basically search a crime scene, find a key item, track the last person, and follow the trail with detective mode. It's cool, but just not particularly crazy. The more frequent use of Batman's detective skills come from solving the obscene amount of Riddler puzzles and collecting all of the trophies scattered across the island. I hate these. We won't beat around the bush with it. I don't like it. But I will say this, they definitely feel the least intrusive here. They aren't really complicated to find, they offer some cool rewards, and you know, when they're not out of the way, sometimes they even encourage further exploration of the asylum, feeding into that Metroidvania vibe. The detective sections of this game and the use of actually being a detective in this game, it's cool. It's not the best, but it's cool. But like everything I've talked about here, combat, stealth, story, presentation, it leaves a strong foundation. I would like that to be the biggest takeaway, because that is the biggest takeaway of coming out of Arkham Asylum, isn't it? Does anyone actually look back on Arkham Asylum and dwell on the rough facial animations, the underwhelming boss fights, the repetitive enemy designs, or the occasional janky camera? Well, I mean, maybe on a modern replay like I'm doing, sure, but on that first run through the madhouse, that is not what sticks with you. You remember the tension, the music, the iconic performances, the Predator encounters where you truly feel like the Batman, and the combat that, even by today's standards, warts and all, still feels incredibly satisfying once you find that free flow rhythm. And when you consider all of that and still remember the simple fact that this was this dev's first crack at a game like this with no prior experience barring one game, it is really difficult for me to look at everything I just discussed and still not just be thoroughly impressed by Arkham Asylum even 17 years later.
It's to the armory.
Nearly 2 decades later, Arkham Asylum still manages to feel distinct, memorable, and mechanically influential. Its pros don't just outweigh its cons, it's bigger than that. It's the fact that this was the first game to create this legacy. It's the fact that this was the game that got it so right on its first try. It not only influenced our man Batman in video games, but superhero games in general. I've never looked back on Arkham Asylum and thought about these issues that strongly. What I remembered was the brutal, fast, and rhythmic combat that still feels amazing all these years later. A Batman story that could have been pulled straight out of a TV show. And most importantly, a stellar, brooding, dark atmosphere that, thanks to incredible art design, music, presentation, etc., holds up all these years later. Batman Arkham Asylum is still one of the best superhero games ever made, one of the best Batman games ever made, and the game that truly set the standard not just for the rest of this incredible series, but for superhero games in general. Batman Arkham Asylum told the rest of the industry that if you don't make superhero games to this quality, we don't want them. And after all this time, looking back at the game now in 2026, I can say it absolutely deserves all of its praise and more. But I still don't think it's the best Batman game in the series, personally. Now, Arkham City, on the other hand, we'll be getting to that awesomeness on another day. And that was my retrospective on Batman Arkham Asylum. If you are one of the people that sat through and watched this all the way to completion, you are a real one. Thank you so much for watching. My next video, it's either going to be a review or a why I'm buying. I'll keep you posted as to which it's going to be. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It helps a ton. If you want to stay up to date with what I'm doing, you can follow me on Instagram. That's @thegamercritic. Be good people, and I will talk to all of you very, very soon. All right, peace.